Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure, is sponsored by us. What? We sponsor ourselves? Is that even legal? Check us out on Amazon. You can have access to the titles of Pedagogue, the youth ministry book by Lonnie Jones, Cognitive Spiritual Development, a Christ-centered approach to spiritual self-esteem, Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space, a small essay using the principles of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to talk about psychological and emotional self-defense, If I Were a Mouse, a children's book written and illustrated by Lonnie Jones, and then The Selfish Reel, a very short story about a decision. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel to see archived lessons and presentations from across the country, some videos with rope tricks and knots. Don't forget to visit the Facebook page 550 Guys to learn about the little rope men that we make and that we invented and that we make. And then be sure to click like, subscribe, and share. This is Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Faulkner University announces a 60% tuition discount for members of the Church of Christ. Now, there are some guidelines. This 60% tuition reduction is applicable to adult undergraduate Bible degrees or graduate Bible degrees from the Curley Graduate School of Theology in the VP Black College of Biblical Studies. You must satisfy all admission requirements and maintain satisfactory academic progress. You must remain continuously enrolled, including summers, until the completion of the degree. You must provide a letter from an elder or minister, preferably on church letterhead, verifying that you're an active member of a Church of Christ congregation prior to your initial enrollment. This offer applies to adult undergraduate degrees such as biblical studies, youth and family ministry tracks, and it also includes graduate degrees. And those are the Master of Arts in Biblical Studies, the Master of Arts in Family Life Ministry, or a Master of Theology, and it also applies to the PhD in Biblical Studies. For undergraduate inquiries, please contact Adult Enrollment, 334-386-7140, 334-386-7140, or Adult Enrollment at Faulkner edu. That is Adult Enrollment at faulkner.edu. For graduate inquiries, please call 334-386-7539, 334-386-7539. Graduate enrollment at faulkner.edu. That is graduate enrollment at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I was with some friends in Colorado. We were on a snowboarding trip, just a guy's trip, and we walked into a tiny theater in a tiny little town in Colorado, and we were looking for our movie. We were looking for some snacks. Some guys were in line to get popcorn, and I noticed a poster on the wall. I asked the young man behind the counter, "Is your manager here?" He said, "Yes, he is." I said, "Can I see him?" The manager walked out, and I said, "I'll give you $500 for that poster." He laughed and thanked me for my offer. The poster in question was a movie poster in the Star Wars genre, and it was entitled Revenge of the Jedi. Well, you've never seen the movie, never even heard of the movie Revenge of the Jedi. That's because Jedis don't get revenge, or at least we're not supposed to. It was the original title for the movie that became Return of the Jedi. But the George Lucas franchise decided, hey, Jedis aren't supposed to get revenge, and that goes against what we're trying to do with this little space opera. And so it was never published. But there are several posters out there that began to advertise this movie before it came out. And in its final phenomenon, when it finally showed up in the theaters, it was Return of the Jedi. But if you could find one of those original posters, I've seen them priced anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000. Now, my revenge saga is a little bit different, and it's really not about revenge. That's just kind of the catchy title. It's not about revenge, but maybe you'd call it karmatic equanimity, or the homeostasis of the universe, if you will. This will initially sound like complaining, but I assure you it's merely explaining. When Jackie and I dated, she rock climbed with me. We have played hours of racquetball and volleyball and volleyball and speedball and even ultimate frisbee. But as we've gotten older, now Jackie's a much better athlete than I am. She's better eye-hand coordination, just superior in all areas other than strength. But as we've gotten older, and she's had 2 ACL surgeries and 2 hip replacements, we've sort of slowed down. We retired our snowboards after the second hip surgery. She's only been bow fishing with me once. And the night we took her, we witnessed the largest mayfly hatch I've ever seen in my life. She told me later, with all those bugs flying around, I'd look up and see the bugs just covering y'all's backs and the back of your necks. She said, I didn't want to embarrass you in front of your friends, so I had to depersonalize and go to a different place in my mind and tell myself that the mayflies were fairies. She doesn't hunt with me. She's deeply afraid of the dark. We don't do jujitsu, and I'm not allowed to show her any jujitsu moves because of that one little unfortunate thing when I accidentally put her to sleep in the bathroom. Having said all that, she doesn't complain, and she never restricts my hobbies or my activities. There's just things that I do that she doesn't participate in. She's driven me to a boat ramp and picked me up at daylight just to keep me from having to drive after being up all night. That being said, for the most part, my hobbies are mine, and they do not interest her, and they do not inconvenience her. Now, like I said, that's not complaining. That's just simply explaining. She, however, does not bring balance to the force. Her pursuits, her hobbies, her interests, her obsessions are always our projects. Somebody needs to work on their pronouns. I water her garden when she travels. I cover her plants when it freezes. I pick her blueberries, her okra, her squash, and her blackberries when she's out of town. When she hires a contractor to remodel, she figures into the price the things that I will do that the contractor does not have to do, and thus I am contractually obligated to do demolition, to remove and assist in her projects. And then there are the Spanish water dogs. And her love and devotion for these Velocimuppets is well established in the annals of this podcast. I want you to know, and I want you to be clear, that more than I love this adorable ragamuffin thing that we call Oreo and the other one called Indy, more than I love the adorable ragamuffin hound, I love seeing Jackie interact with them. I like to see her train with them. I like to see her teach them to do tricks. I like to see her do their competitions. And I love the fact that she has this passion, and I love to see the fulfillment she gets from having these dogs. The only rub in this matter is that there is not a clear separation of church and state, as it were. Somehow, somewhere, Jackie's pets became my pets. My projects are not her projects. My projects are not her problem. And she has very clear boundaries about that. My climbing does not involve inconvenience or interest her. My hunting and bow fishing and martial arts are loved and encouraged by her, other than an occasional ride to and from a boat ramp or listening to a story about my hunting adventures or watching the UFC or the PGF. The things that I'm into do not involve her and do not require effort on her part. I, however, walk the dog. I kennel the dog. I rearrange my schedule because of the dog's schedule. I modify trips to accommodate the dogs. I sit the dogs, deliver the dogs to the sitter, pick the dogs up from the sitter, take the dog to the vet, get the dog from the vet. I wait on her, and I cancel plans to accommodate the groomer. Now be clear, I'm not grousing, and I'm not even saying it's unfair, and I'm not even saying it's unenjoyable. What I'm saying is there was this understanding that this is something you're going to do in retirement. I'm not retired, but her dog became our dog. I did not sign up for the amount of involvement or the amount of energy that Jackie owning a dog would require of me. The dogs steal my heart. I love to see her interact with them. I think they are adorable. And in the 2 occasions when we've raised puppies at our house, there's this inexplicable thing that happens to my soul when there are puppies. But I did not sign up to be a kennel owner. I did not sign up to be a kennel operator. And there's something deep inside of me that if she asked me to do something with her for the dogs, I'd actually feel selfish if I refuse to do my part with the dogs. But I thought your wife owning a dog should be like having grandkids. You get to pet them, you get to play with them, but you don't actually own them. Well, we all know that's a delusional state. I, too, am a dog owner. Jackie doesn't make the distinction. Jackie doesn't make the distinction between, hey, these are my dogs, these are not your dogs. Jackie doesn't make the distinction, and the dogs definitely don't make the distinction. In fact, I'm not sure Oreo can tell us apart. When we went to North Carolina to pick her up during the zombie apocalypse, we drove across country during COVID and had to eat our meals standing in the parking lot of restaurants because we couldn't go in. And we stood there on the back of my truck and ate on the toolbox on an 8-hour trip to North Carolina to pick Oreo up. And when we picked Oreo up, somehow she bonded to both of us. I'm not sure that in her puppy mind she can distinguish us as separate entities. There is a thing where if Jackie's not there, then I'm fine. And if I'm not there, Jackie's fine. But if we're both at the house, we both have to take her outside. She will not play Frisbee with Jackie by herself. She will not play Frisbee with me by myself. We both have to be in the yard. So in some way, Oreo doesn't know that we're separate entities, and she often requires both of us for certain things. So, on Revenge of the Jedi night, I'm out at a little place I'm allowed to hunt, and I shot a deer. Now, this is not going to be a trophy buck. It's just going to be some venison. She wants me to kill more deer this year because she uses some of the ground meat in preparing a custom healthy dog food. So she's even involved my deer hunting with her dog owning. Well, I shot this little deer, and I got up and began to establish, how to find the deer. Found a good blood trail, and I decided this would be an excellent opportunity to see if Oreo would actually track a deer. Now, Oreo's been in some scent classes, and these Spanish water dogs are exceptional nose dogs. And so I called Jackie. I said, hey, I've got a good shot on a deer. I've got a good established blood trail. I need Oreo to help me find this deer. So Jackie shows up on this farm after dark in the minivan. She gives me the leash, and Oreo and I start out into the wilderness. But Oreo won't leave Jackie. She gets just a little bit away from the van, and then she returns. And I'll drag her off, and we'll go into the fence, and the dog goes back to the van. I go up to the van, and I say, now, honey, you're going to have to go with me. Oreo's not going to leave you. Her response was, in the dark out there, Well, yes, out there, and it's going to be dark because I can't seem to find the switch that turns the sun back on. So, yes, you're going to have to go out there in the dark and in the cold with me. In my early days of hunting, I wore sweatpants, and over the top of the sweatpants, I wore some used Army surplus BDUs. I had an old military field jacket and a face toboggan. I wore leather boots that I inherited from my dad after his days in the National Guard. And I walked into the woods carrying a sleeping bag and would get into a brush pile or underneath up against the rock wall and get into a sleeping bag in order to sit on the ground and hunt just to stay warm. Since being in private practice, my outdoor gear is pretty nice. I have 10X Teflon, Realtree, waterproof, windproof, Carhartt level saddle cloth. It is briar resistant, wind resistant, and water resistant. It is some of the best gear you can own, and I am extremely comfortable when I'm out in the elements and in the brush with my hunting gear. My wife gets out of the minivan, and she is in a puffy purple coat. And this little white beret she wears, it reminds me of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man's hat. And she has these little woolen fingerless gloves, and she has on a pair of leggings and her plaid duck boots. And in her Mary Poppins costume with her little dog, she follows me across the pasture into the sage grass, and from the sage grass into the woods, and into the woods across the fence and into the brambles so that she can keep watch on her dog. At some point, Oreo gets into full tracking mode. She's found the blood trail, and that nose goes to the ground, and she cares nothing else about, hey, what's at the end of this trail? And she's sniffing and falling. And Jackie has overcome some of her discomfort, and now she's fascinated by the blood trail. She's watching her dog and she's following her dog, and she's behind Oreo, so she's really not helping, but she announces, I found more blood. Here's more blood. This is a great blood trail. Well, Oreo's already well past that point, and she's following her, but she's excited. She's into this. Eventually, Oreo finds the deer, and we're excited. We're praising Oreo, and we're feeling really, really, really accomplished. And then she says, Are you going to need my help dragging this deer out? No, honey, I'm not gonna drag it out right now. I'm gonna field dress it. And field dress it is polite language for I'm going to remove its heart, its lungs, its liver, its stomach, its intestines. You get the picture. Jackie says, I'm out of the picture. I'm not going to stand here and watch that. That's okay. So you're not gonna stay here. I understand that. So just take Oreo back to the vehicle, and I'll see you back home. I don't know where the vehicle is. I shine my light at the puffy purple jacket and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man hat and the little duck boots, and she's standing there with her little gloves holding the leash of her dog. And I said, well, you just follow the blood trail back to the field. When you get to the field, you follow the wood line around the field, and then you can see the light on the barn, and your van is right there. She said, I'm not real sure what you just said. Okay, now you know the feeling of what it's like when you send me to the store to buy a bra or a spice I've never heard of. I'm not real sure what you just said. As it turns out, Oreo knew where the van was, and Jackie used her to get back. Now, there was some argument between Oreo and Jackie as to why they couldn't just go through the fences and under the fences, and why they had to walk all the way around, even though it was a less direct route. But Jackie tended to be able to negotiate with Oreo that I can't go through there and you're going to have to go around. But she found her way back to the van in the dark with her little dog as her guide. Well, I get the deer field dressed and drug out and take it to the processor. And I get home, and Jackie's still excitingly talking about this. She's acting like we've been on some grand adventure. And it's not like we summited Everest or found Bigfoot, but she's on this adrenaline high. She'd gotten outside of her comfort zone. She'd gone out into the wilderness, quote unquote. And now she's talking about being a deer tracker, and we need to do this with Oreo more often. We need to do that again. It's not my adventure, and it's not her adventure. It's the adventure of sharing an adventure. As mild of an adventure as it was, the adventure part of it is the shared experience and not the actual adventure part of the things that I've actually been involved in, of the things that I've actually done in my life. This would not rank as deeds of daring do, but it felt like that to her. And it was really special to me because in some way worlds collided, or not really worlds collided, but better yet, worlds united. Her, our dog, my woods, all of them coming together at one time and sharing an experience. And once Oreo found the deer, Jackie celebrated as if we found the Ark of the Covenant. It was just unbelievable to see her excitement to find what, it's an inconsequential deer. It's not a trophy buck. It's just meat for the freezer. But Jackie's celebrating the accomplishment of her dog and the fact that she's with me and she's in the dark, despite the fact that she wasn't very well prepared to be in the dark or in the cold, in the purple puffy jacket and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man beret. Relationships are about connection. And attempts to connect are often described by John Gottman as bids for affection. And when someone asks us to connect, when someone bids for our affection, we can respond to those bids by turning toward them, by turning away from them, or by turning against them. Toward means, yeah, I'm going to engage. I'm going to accept your invitation. I'm going to go with you. Turning away from a bid basically means I'm disinterested and I didn't recognize it as an attempt to connect. And turning against them is often met with, is when you meet them with hostility or disinterest or disdain. You see, this is why I'm involved with these dogs in the first place. And I love the dogs. Don't get me wrong. Our life has changed greatly because we have Oreo and Indy at our house. But it's not the dog I'm interested in, but the dog owner that really kindles my interest. And she's not a hunter. She'll never be a hunter. She killed one unfortunate raccoon, and that was because it made her mad, not because it made her afraid. Note to self. But she's involved with my hunting because she's involved with me. She doesn't hunt, but she listens to the plans. She looks at the pictures from the game camera. She goes with me in the off season to explore and pick out spots and get and remove equipment. She's gone and supervised me while I'm climbing to hang a stand so that I have somebody there in case I fall. And now she's ventured into the dark wood with her lap dog. And we now have this connection through or over hunting. What I value is valuable to her simply because I value it. This goes beyond just my hobbies. That connection goes just beyond adventures, and it extends to my angst, my anxiety, my worry, my fears, my insecurities, my failings, and my traumas. And she doesn't need any of that extra stuff in her life. She's got all that herself. But they involve her, and she's involved in them because they involve me. And when you start talking about being involved with other people and showing them interest, it's never about keeping score or balancing the books. It's not about what I owe you or what you owe me. And in spite of the title of the podcast, it's not about revenge, making sure I get mine. Shocking news, Jedi are not real. Christians are, and friends are. And we do things with each other and for each other. And it's not because we give in, we give up, or we give out, or we have an obligation to do. We simply do that as a choice because we purely simply give to the other person. And when we give, we connect. That's the basis for friendship. That's the basis for partnership. That's the basis for the three things that I talk about all the time when I talk about groups becoming united, about groups becoming cohesive. It's about attention, belonging, and support. And when I'm involved in a group and I give the individual members of that group my attention, I do my best to make them feel belonging, and then I give them support. I celebrate their victories and I help them navigate their defeats. That's unity. It's how two become one. It's how individuals become communities. It's how group become teams. And it's how a group of worshipers become fellowship. Because you see, when we have attention, belonging, and support, I'm involved in the things that don't interest me simply because I'm interested in you. Reciprocation of attention, belonging, and support. That simply means sometimes I go shopping for her, and other times I go shopping with her. It means going beyond following my adventures and just listening to them, but sometimes she follows me on an adventure into the woods, into the dark, and she shares, she becomes part of my adventure. Sharing is caring. And that's not about sharing in the sense of giving me things, but in being interested in me and participating with me. And to say you're interested in me but won't go with me is disingenuous. Being with someone is caring about them. It's about investing in them. And that investment is not about what you owe them. That kind of investment is not about revenge. That kind of investment is what you owe yourself. And that is an investment not in self, but in us. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3Ws and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones Podcast Adventure.